Good morning, five-star real estate agents, and welcome to another week of your trip around the trip around the world with your broker support agents, and getting another 30 minutes in with our 10,000 club. Today we have Kim Anderson and Doug Halligan. Hello, team.
Hello.
Hey, again, good morning.
Good morning. So last week we spent a little bit of time on the quick assessment from five-star real estate. Something that we're asking you to do when you onboard with five-star real estate and at your onboarding, and then we'd like you to do it a second time around your 30-day mark or even after you've done 5 transactions with us. So what we're doing is making sure you understand what we're asking you, and maybe you don't know the answers to some of these questions, but at the end of the day, we want you to be a real estate rock star and get them all right. So last week we went through the first 10. Today we're going to go through the next 10. And so I'll let Kim take it from there.
All right. So if you missed last week, go to, what's today's date? September 2nd. So
Yep.
whatever 7 days ago was, like August something. Check that live stream out because the first 10 questions and answers are there. So I am going to quiz your broker support team today. So,
Yay.
All right, here we go, guys. Number 11, as a buyer's agent, is it your responsibility to verify that gas, electric, public water, public sewer are connected? What would be the easiest and quickest way to verify? Go.
I'll take that one because I had that happen yesterday. It was kind of interesting because I had someone say, well, where does your role start and stop? And as an agent, these are conversations that you want to have with your buyer ahead of time. So the easy answer there is no, guys. Most definitely, that's something that you want to have conversations with your buyer ahead of time. No, you don't want any interruption of any service by any means, but most definitely that whole idea of agency must be explained prior to the signing of anything else that we would do. So does that make sense?
Yeah, a little bit.
I think we got a couple topics mixed in there. So Doug is talking about verifying utilities or verifying, because were you talking about agency?
Well, I was talking about agency, but the same thing goes with utilities. So
I would say that in terms of the utilities, that we would want to encourage our agents to verify that those utilities are hooked up. And the simplest way to do that is really just to call your local municipality and ask them, hey, is the house at 123 Main Street, is it hooked up to public water or public sewer or both? Yeah. And at the same time, you may find that that municipality has a local assessment that usually sometimes runs with the land or, the sale. So it could be a public utility assessment that's a 15-year assessment or 20. I've seen them longer. And we'll need to determine who's going to be responsible for that assessment going forward. So when you make that call to verify those things, you can also ask that question.
Yes.
Hey,
so the answer is yes.
Thanks for keeping me on the right question.
That's okay.
We'll go to the next one in a second. One thing on what Tracy said, I have helped agents after the sale where they were told it was public well and septic, public water and sewer. And after we got closed, they thought it was public, but they literally had a septic system. It did have to be hooked up and it did have an assessment. Right. And the seller had been there for many, many years and thought for sure it was on public. But I think you would know if you don't receive a water sewer bill.
Yeah.
So good practices, as Tracy said, just call every time. If it's not, just to verify, is it public? Is there an assessment? Are there any changes?
Yeah. The other thing I like the caveat to that is I always like to say to the buyer, I called, this is what I learned, trust, but verify. So this is what I learned. I would encourage you to give a call to the local municipality as well. Here's the phone number, but this is what I was able to learn. Right. So
practice. I always do exactly what Tracy said. I don't want them to take my word for it. Mm-hmm. This is what I have found, but I need you to call and hear with your own ears. And so you're verifying it.
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. So now how about number 12, Doug? How do you avoid making every agent in 5-star a representative for your buyer?
Now we can talk about agency, right? Now we can talk about agency.
Right.
Absolutely. by having your buyer sign a buyer agency contract, totally important, designating you as the only agent that Five Star represents. So absolutely, that's how you do it.
Yeah. Otherwise, when I take on a buyer, if I don't have a designated agency contract, every agent in Five Star represents my buyer, and we know that we don't want that to happen. Perfect. Yep. Number 13. Can you charge someone you do not legally represent a $295 transaction fee? Tracy, what's an example of this?
So a $295 has to be charged on every time we represent a buyer or a seller. And if we happen to represent, so say I'm a buyer's agent and I happen to be working with a for sale by owner, we have to charge the $295 on both sides of that transaction because there is no representation on the other side of the transaction. Therefore, Five Star Real Estate is actually taking on the liability for both of those sides. So yes, that $295 must be charged. And if you can't convince that for sale by owner to work with you as a buyer's agent, hopefully you can also get them to understand the $295, but either way, it has to be charged. So if they're unwilling to pay for it, you'll have to pay for it out of your commission.
Yep, it's a requirement of our company, right?
It is, and if you are going to be approaching a for sale by owner, we won't get into that today, but we'd love to talk to you about which forms you need and how to do that. Right?
Great.
Perfect. Good. All right, number 14. If you help a friend or family member transact a sale without any fee or paperwork turned into Five Star, your fingerprints are on the documents. Have you made Five Star liable for a transaction where there is no company paperwork and no compensation?
Yes.
A simple answer. I'm shaking my head. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Every time. Your fingerprint on the document, you're making a company liable.
Yep. And you need to think about your license number being right here on your forehead. No matter where you go, that license follows you wherever you're at. So you are never a non-licensed agent. So Five Star Real Estate should be on all the paperwork for any real estate that you do.
Absolutely.
Because it's implied, right? If you're helping, it's implied. So we want to just get that paperwork done and do it officially. Perfect. Number 15. Can you accept direct compensation for any real estate related work?
Simple answer there again, Kim. Absolutely not. No. Right. No. Not at all.
Your broker, right?
Yep. Has to come. Absolutely.
Yep. All right. And like we said, any of these questions that trigger other questions with you, put them in the comments or contact one of us afterwards, and we'd be glad to talk you through that a little bit further.
Yep. And just to say also too, there will come a time when someone will say to you, "Oh, I just want to." Whatever. It's like, you can accept the compensation, right? You can say, thank you so much, but the check needs to be made payable to Five Star Real Estate, your broker. And then that will be part of your 1099 and you'll receive an EFT from Jeff Bender. So yes, it's possible, but it just can't be done outside of the real estate relationship through Five Star Real Estate.
Have you ever had anybody say, hey, who do I make the EMD check out to? Right. Yeah. And say, well, don't make it out to Doug Hale. I love my job. Right. I love it. So make sure you're making it out to the company.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Number 16. Are you responsible if the buyer fails to turn in the earnest money on time? So you're the buyer's agent. Are you responsible if, either buyer or seller, are you responsible if the buyer fails to turn the earnest money in on time?
I'm shaking my head yes again. Absolutely, every time. You are definitely responsible. So,
and you should be verifying it on both the buyer side and the seller side.
Yeah.
Sure. Yep.
Absolutely. Because regardless of what side you are on, if the buyer doesn't turn it in, I like to say this is a game some buyers play. They don't turn it in because they want to get past inspections. But the minute that they don't turn it in on time, according to contract, they're in breach of contract.
Right.
And you, as a buyer's agent, first as a listing agent, you want to know, because how many times have we got to the end, the deal falls apart, and the earnest money was never collected, right? So they have nothing. And then a buyer's agent, the way that you avoid responsibility is verify, did you get that? could you give me a copy? Some agents won't give you a copy, but could you please show me verification? The county can give a verification. Or I just keep track that they said, yes, it was received. So if we have a problem later, I have your word. But as a buyer's agent, your responsibility is to know. That way, if it's not collected later, you no longer have the liability on you. You did your job. If you don't verify, you may be liable for that earnest money. So,
and something we talked about in some of our previous sessions with a checklist, Tracy, I just make that part of my checklist. That is something that by all means, that has to be a part of that. It isn't out of the question to reach out. Let's say you're representing a seller, to reach out to that buyer's agent for verification. Lots of times they'll send you a copy of that. You might see something like that in dot loop, but be correct in terms of that communication. We want to make sure that that's collected.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and if you're not collecting it on time, be a good communicator. That is your job, to communicate with the other side that you haven't collected it. Actually, you probably need to write an addendum extending the period until you're able to collect that.
So,
furthermore,
Kim, question, what's on time? I'm sure an agent right now is saying, well, what does that mean? What's on time?
Right, that's a good question.
24 hours? Is that 48 hours? Contractually, how long do I have to chase for an earnest money check?
So I believe in the West Michigan Regional Purchase Agreement, it says 72, correct?
72 hours, that's correct.
Yeah. I see a lot of purchase agreements. So
you got it. Good job.
Car, I believe, is 48. So you have 72 hours to collect it, to get it to the branch administrator or to accounting. And then we have 2 business days that has to be in 5 Stars account. So yes, whatever the contract says or whatever you write in. If you don't write that in, then it's assumed when you write the contract that you have the check in your hand.
Right. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Mine, I always write that I'm going to collect it within 2 banking days. So whatever the contract says, that's what you've obligated your client to.
Yep.
And also I see this a lot too. This is a little bit off topic, but it still has to do with EMD, but it relates to who's holding the EMD. So some purchase agreements, you'll write in there, it's being held by Star Title, but then all of a sudden you've collected a check that says 5 Star Real Estate. So you're in conflict with your purchase agreement. So whatever's on the buy sell must be what we follow. So again, in that scenario, if it's the 295 and we said that Star Title was going to be holding that 295, but yet I collected a check from my buyer that said 5 Star Real Estate, an addendum will need to be written that says there's a change to the PA and that now the EMD will be held by 5 Star Real Estate in that, as that example.
Good point. Good point.
All right. Is the buyer or buyer's agent responsible to verify that all repairs and contingencies have been fulfilled? Is it buyer or buyer's agent?
I'm going to say the short answer is buyer's agent. That is your responsibility. If you're representing the buyer, that's fine, but it is still your responsibility for all practical purposes. It's verified. Yep.
How do I do that? How do I verify?
How would you do that, Tracy? I've got my answer.
Yeah. So for repairs, you're going to have to, depending on, again, if it was repairs, there should be an inspection addendum. If it said, what did it say? Did it say that you're going to physically see it? Do you want to see a copy of the repairs that were done by a licensed contractor? So point back to exactly what you've written, because what you have written is what is enforceable. And that's what we're looking at. And the thing that's tied to contingencies is what? EMD, right? So the EMD is tied to those contingencies. So again, we need to be making sure that we're paying attention to the EMD, right? Because that's ultimately either for a seller, right? That's their reward for damages, or for the buyer, it's their, I'm going to get out because the seller didn't fulfill their end. So it's important to verify whatever you've written. So in most of the case, you're saying I'll inspect, and number 2 is written receipt by a licensed contractor.
And it's not uncommon to walk through again, right?
No, to go view,
Thing is taken care of, even though they've said it is, even though it's documented. I've had it happen that, yes, they've said it's done, and it hadn't been done. Or they were doing it this upcoming weekend. Well, again, bottom line is it's still your responsibility as the buyer's agent.
Yep.
Right. So a quick example is I'm dealing with one right now where everything was handled correctly. It was in writing. that it was fixed by a licensed contractor. Buyer's agent and buyer walked through, everything looked fine. Been in the house a week, the basement is full of water. So right now, you know, what you know as a buyer's agent is that you did your job. You walked through, you got documentation, you checked. We can't control what happens after the fact that we can't see. So unfortunately, this is all is kind of becoming a big deal right now, like between $10,000 and $20,000 big deal.
Yeah.
So do your best. So if something does happen after the fact, you know you did everything you could to make sure that problem was resolved. All right.
Good.
Number 18, will a legal tribunal judge
judge
you on your intentions or on what you wrote in the contract? What's the phrase?
What you I don't, what's the phrase?
It's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
It didn't happen. Yeah. Yep. In writing.
One of the common things I see is a house goes on the market, you and your other teammate talk, or another agent you talk, and you come to a verbal agreement and you think you have a deal, and seller said, I'll take that. We both have a meeting of the minds, but it's only a handshake. And then all of a sudden they get another offer and they decide they're going to take that offer instead of yours. I never tell my clients anything is for sure until it's in writing.
Yep.
Perfect. Number 19, if the listing agent tells you verbally, I just said this. If the listing agent tells you verbally or even in writing that the seller will be accepting your offer, does that constitute a legal agreement?
Right. No, I just had a brand new agent of mine. he showed like a couple of houses to one buyer and wrote a contract. Listing agent called and said, yep, we're going to accept your offer. Just send me your pre-approval, because this buyer didn't have their pre-approval, kept dragging their feet. So now it's Sunday night, they get an acceptance. Monday morning, we send the copy of the pre-approval. The agent says, oh, well, we got another offer overnight. But she told us on Sunday that we won. No, you did not win. So, and they did not win. So.
No, I'll tell you a really quick story since we're moving along pretty quickly. Years and years ago, I was representing a buyer. The home that they really, really wanted had a first right of refusal with somebody else, so we didn't get it. So we continued to look. This is when the market was just starting to heat up with multiple offers. And so we went ahead and put an offer in, multiple offers on another home. And in the time my buyer was camping up north, we were just getting used to some of this dot loop, doing it by phone, sign, and she'd have great service. And so the listing agent calls me and says, Kim, your buyer won the offer. I'm like, yay, great, great, great. I will get with Laura, whatever her name was, and she's at a campground. She's going to come in town, and then we're going to execute this. She'll go to FedEx or something, and we're going to get executed. In that brief 30, 45 minutes, the home that had the first right of refusal came through in my email. It was active. So now I had a choice to make.
Yeah.
And so I called, I think her name was Sarah. So I called Sarah, explained what happened. I said, it's not executed ethically. We have a handshake, but you haven't signed the dotted line. I need to make you aware because I represent you. What do you want to do? I said, but we can't hold them both up. You have to let go of this one. Let's go work on that one. You have to make a decision. She said, I really love the first house. Let this one go.
Yeah.
And so I called the agent and said, I am so sorry. I don't like to do business this way, but I had in the best interest of my client. She loves this house. It just hit the market. I am so sorry. He slammed the phone down on me and said, God bless you. And he had other offers and it went through. But sometimes we get in tough situations like that because it wasn't in writing yet. And I wasn't playing a game. She was literally at a campground somewhere and had no service.
Yeah.
So just know these kind of things happen. And I know examples help you, help the agents when they hear some of our stories. So that's some tough decisions. Get it in writing as fast as you can, because anyone could withdraw an offer, another offer can come in. A lot of things can happen before it's executed.
I got a great friend, and I got a little saying here on my computer that always says, "Verbal's in the air, written's always there." And again, I don't even know why I remember that, but I go to sleep with that at night. If I don't see it in writing, it's not there. So And I don't know why I feel that way, but I'm just really weird when it comes to having things in writing.
That's good.
That's a good weird.
It's a good weird.
Yeah. Number 20, if your sale is going to go past the contract end date by 2 days, should you get an extension in writing? Absolutely.
Absolutely every time.
Yep. And the title company will ask you if you didn't do it, which you should have, you'll have to sign that at the closing table. Your dates have to, you have to be, otherwise you're no longer under contract, right?
Yeah. Most lenders will want them to. Like sometimes the lenders will say, I don't really care, you know, it doesn't matter to us. But some lenders want to make sure they're closing a sale that is in contract. So dates are important. Pay attention to them, watch them, make sure they're on your checklist that you're looking at, that you're following, put them in your calendar, whatever you need to do. But everything that's in the contract, you are responsible for.
And I always say the same thing too. Don't wait till closing. Get that out, get that extension done, get it signed, make sure we're all having good conversation around that, because sometimes you don't want to wait until that closing and count on the closing person to come up with that. You want to do that ahead of time, be very proactive in that. So
always. All right, good answer. Number 22. Why should you always advise clients to take advantage of all opportunities to investigate and inspect? So, number one, we know in this market, we're trying to win in multiple offers, and often inspections, they don't want you to do an inspection, right? Sellers want you to give up all your rights.
Yep.
So why is it important, even if it's saying for information purposes, why should we do inspections every time?
Well, because we can't see between the walls, and we're not an expert on everything, nor do we claim to be an expert on anything. So we want to rely on outside voices to provide professional advice to our clients.
Yep. And to avoid liability after the sale is closed. That's why it brings us back to the pre-offer addendum. When we ask them all of those questions, we absolutely recommend that you don't waive inspections. But if you choose to, because you want to win, here's a form that says you understand I've told you to inspect. So it's like surveys, inspections. You want to know exactly what you're buying. And so you really want to make sure that you recommend that.
Right, exactly. And that pre-offer addendum is signed. The thing is that once you get a client to a point where they're ready to write an offer, it's an emotional time. Things are moving quickly, right? So emotions are running high. So we see it in the purchase agreement. They're going to eventually sign it there. But when we put that in front of them multiple times, it says, do you understand that when you waive inspections, this is what it means? So we've talked about it, we've seen it, we've signed it in the pre-offer addendum, then we've seen it again in the purchase agreement. So you've done everything you really can to advise the client, like, hey, we get it. You want to win this house, and you understand that in this market, to win, you're willing to waive inspections. However, our recommendation is that you always inspect.
Yep. I always look at my buyers like they're my children. Would I tell my daughter to do this? And then if they make the decision to not inspect, then I've tried my best to advise them and help them with that. So,
but it comes with a lot of conversation too, though, doesn't it, Kim? A lot of conversation up front so that they understand the big picture. That's important.
Some agents even bring their client and somebody who's really good, maybe a father or a friend or somebody during their showing.
Yeah, they sure do.
The opportunity to look around. Now, if you're going to be going into someone's attic and on a roof during a showing, you really need to get permission in writing from the seller, but they do it, right? They go in as much as you can. You want to be, and when you're getting 15-minute showing appointments or 30, that doesn't work for me. Some agents will book 2 back-to-back. I thought that was a great idea. When an agent limits us, just book 2 of them. I need my buyer to get in the home, right? That's brilliant. So just little tricks. And that brings us to the number 23. What happens if buyer claims you did not encourage them to have all inspections that were available? What's the answer? What's going to happen?
I'm going to go back to the pre-offer, the whole idea of the pre-offer addendum again, having these conversations up front. I mean, the last thing you want is the buyer would call you into court. I mean, for damage or something that, my goodness, that you could have avoided way early on in the process had you had that pre-offer addendum in place, had you had those earlier conversations in place. So that's the last thing you want to do. When you go to court, nobody wins, right?
Right. Nobody wins.
Ahead of time. Let's put a pre-offer addendum in front of them every time. Again, the more conversation up front, again, avoids so much.
Yep. Perfect. So number 24, what form of agency creates more liability and opportunities for trouble? Is that seller's agent, buyer's agent, or dual agent?
I have my answer. Go ahead, Trace.
Dual agency. Dual agency. The only time I really feel like you should use dual agency is, say I'm listing a house, right? Yep. I'm the listing agent. Okay. And I have a buyer that I've been working with for 2 months, right? Okay. So I have a listing contract and I have a buyer's agency contract. So I have 2 contracts with 2 different people. And my buyer happens to come along with my listing and absolutely falls in love with it. Well, I have 2 contracts. So what do? I think that's the most appropriate time to use dual agency. I don't know about you guys, but otherwise, if I'm a listing agent and a buyer comes along, I always remain in the seller's position. I begin and end with who I started with.
Exactly. Everything you just said.
Yes, absolutely. And once again, if you're not sure, give one of our broker support team a call, and we're going to ask you, what's your relationship? Always go back to what's your relationship? How well do you know the seller? How well do you know the buyer? How much do you know about them? And I'm ask you questions about your relationship so we can figure out who you are truly representing.
Right. It's all about liability. There's less liability for 5-star real estate for us to be a buyer's agent or a seller's agent than there is in any dual agency situation. So
yep.
We want to keep us out of trouble.
Absolutely. And then the last question, number 25, does a buyer or seller pay $10,000 or more to their agent to just sell their home, or is there more that they are expecting from their agent? What do they expect from us when we list a home? What is, whether a buyer or seller, if we are their agent, what are they expecting from us?
To me, it's all about full-on representation, the buyer's best interest, the seller's best interest. There's got to be that confidentiality. There's got to be that loyalty. They're paying us a lot of money, and the sellers is expecting that representation, and that means full representation, right?
Yep, full as if it's yourself, basically.
Yep.
I do.
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Very.
How would I want this to be handled? Would I want an inspection? Would I want everything in writing? Would I want everything to be strongly confirmed, or do I want just somebody's opinion or somebody's hearsay, right?
Right. Yep. And if I were a new agent, I would take the disclosure regarding agency relationship and I would read it. And I would really understand. At the top of it, it says, what are my duties? And when you look at those duties and you really think about what's being asked of you, I would know that like I was a pro. I would believe it, and I would work to the best of my ability to represent whether you're a buyer's agent or a seller's agent, just to know and set the expectation about the type of agent you'll be.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. So that wraps up our 25 questions. We will post the link again to the quick assessment. If you haven't taken it, I did notice that we had about maybe 6 or 7 more entries that people that went out, agents that went out and took the quick assessment. Like I said, this is not a test. We just want to help you understand some of these very basic principles, allow it to open up conversations. If you're not sure, just call us up and go, okay, you talked about this. Could you tell me some more about it? Yep. And if you would go click on that link and take the assessment, look at it as a challenge to see what you do and don't know and how you might be able to improve. So any final thoughts, Doug or Tracy?
Man, I just urge you to take these. I mean, most definitely, we just want you to get better and better and better at what you're here to do. And as Tracy said, we want you to be a pro.
Yep.
And again, the more you know, the more you invest in yourself. And that's where this starts. The better you're going to be for both buyers, seller clients, and for yourself. So take the time, get smarter, understand if there's questions. Guys, there's no foolish questions. We want to ask questions. We want to be there for you. So again, Tracy, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Nope. I was just going to say what you just said. Call us, invite us in, you know,
Please.
let us review your transactions, call us with your problems, whatever it is. I mean, I get crazy questions about things, and it's just good to connect with people, and we want you to win. And we want to be there with you for like your first 5 transactions, because we know that you're going to have questions, and that's what we're here for, to help. So go make a great day, and let's win.
Absolutely.
All right. Everybody have an amazing Labor Day. I hope you get to rest, do something fun. I know a lot of the kids are back to school, a little bit of a transition time. So stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you next Thursday.
Great.
All right.
That's great.
Okay,
see ya.
Thanks, Kate.